Hey folks, good afternoon. Welcome to a Tuesday afternoon edition of Tropical Tracks. And already, unfortunately, we're talking about something that's in the Atlantic, headed towards the Caribbean. We'll break it down. Of course, remember to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, get up here a little bit, and hit the notifications button. Obviously, I'm going to have to change my camera angle so that you can get the updates as we go forward here into what continues to look like it's going to be a busy season. Now, what I always like to do right away is just address immediately at the front of the video who needs to pay attention and who doesn't in terms of the next 5 days. And then if you don't want to stay around and watch the kind of the meteorological discussion, that's fine. You can drop off then, but please, before you leave, hit the like, subscribe, and notification button. And then once we get through that, we'll take a deeper dive into kind of what's going on today, what we're watching, and basically what's down the road. So our tropical disturbance has gotten better organized late last night, through the morning today. Hurricane hunters have been in investigating, and it's not quite a tropical depression yet, but it looks like there are some things going on that if it continues what it's doing, it could become a tropical depression. So I think in the near term, and this is our tropical threats for the next 5 days, and basically when you get to the high category, this is kind of a different scale here. When you get to the high category, that means you should be preparing for a hurricane. So nobody right now is preparing for a hurricane. As this moves to the west into the Caribbean and skirts there along northern Venezuela, as well as Trinidad and Tobago, ABC Islands, Abaco, Bonaire, and Curacao, also potentially the coast of Colombia there, and then maybe at the end of the 5 days, and let me point it out here, at the end of the 5 days, even potentially Central America there, all the folks in the green area, you need to be paying attention. You could see some gusty winds and some heavy rainfall, especially Trinidad and Tobago, where, of course, flooding seems like it's always an issue anytime we have any type of tropical disturbance moving through. But because it's not that developed yet, and it potentially could develop as it moves west, our threat is more moderate here across the northwestern coast of Venezuela there, as well as Colombia here in the ABC Islands. So potentially what we would think of as a weak system, not a hurricane threat coming into the islands, but a developing system and an increasing threat moving to the west. Now, it's possible it's what we call a low rider. Potentially, it's going to stay right along the coast there. That, in some ways, could limit development until it gets into the western or central Caribbean. Too early to tell on that right now, but certainly bears watching. So if this is something that resonates with you, then pay attention. If you are in the no threat condition area right now, basically just have your hurricane plan together and your hurricane kit, and just sit and watch. Nothing to do right now, no action to take. Just watch it as we are going to be watching it in the coming days. All right, let's take a deeper dive and kind of get under the hood here and see what's going on with this system. All right, so first off, we always like to start with a bit of an overview here, kind of encompassing what's going on. We don't look at model data initially. We always do an analysis, and in the Atlantic over the water, where we don't have a lot of ship observations, we typically rely heavily on satellite. And you can see our disturbance this afternoon really kind of standing out right there. It a couple of days ago was real round. Yesterday, it wasn't as round. Remember, yesterday we had kind of some thunderstorms on one side, some thunderstorms on the other side, and nothing really over the center. But it's gotten round again now as it's moving to the west at about 10 to 15 miles an hour. For a while, it was moving a little bit faster to the west. I think if the speed's going to be in the 10 to 15 mile an hour range, I'll show you in a second here. Probably somewhere in this time frame, once it's in the central Caribbean or the southeast Caribbean, it could pick up speed a little bit. That's advertised in some of the models. We also got a pretty good disturbance out here to the west of the Cabo Verde Islands, and it's kind of on the edge of becoming a tropical depression or a tropical storm. This is an upper level up here, and then we've got just basically some showers and thunderstorms kind of scattered off the east coast, and a little bit of thunderstorm activity there approaching Honduras, as well as along the eastern Nicaraguan coast. Let's move forward here and talk about kind of a close-up look. And you can see there by looking at that right away, kind of the first takeaway is that there's a round appearance. Most of the high clouds are divergent, which in other words means they're kind of spreading out there like that. That is usually a area, means there's favorable upper level profile over this feature right here. Even there's a little bit of the high cloudiness kind of coming out to the west there. So also a little bit of a favorable profile. Now what catches your eye right away is this little swirl that's kind of racing away from the center there. It's funny because sometimes these systems, they will create like a low level center that then gets sheared out from underneath of it and goes running away. Sometimes those features we track, sometimes they don't. Thankfully today we had a hurricane hunter in, and I'll show you that in just a second. But the hurricane hunter found that little feature that's running away there, that little thing right there, that is not really of concern or a trackable feature. The true feature, the true potential development in terms of a circulation is underneath the thunderstorms. And going forward, that's going to be something we're going to be watching very closely, because as long as that potential circulation is under persistent thunderstorm activity, it has a very high likelihood of developing. So that's one of our ingredients there. Also, the roundness of it, that is a contributing factor towards development there. Upper level wind profile right now looks marginally favorable, so that's also a plus. There is a bit of shear. It's not so evident in the upper level winds. It's more in the low level winds, and you can see those clouds kind of racing in underneath there. Stronger easterly winds, and that's what's helping to squirt that low level center out up there. You can also, when you look carefully, see some of these cloud elements there. They are trying to move into it. So we do have kind of a disorganized circulation there. It still appears to be broad, not concentrated yet, but just probably on the edge of being a tropical depression, but maybe not there. Now, of course, the Hurricane Center, they watch this very closely. They're the experts, and they could probably start advisories if they felt that they needed to on this. They could start what we call potential tropical cyclone advisories. I know, a very confusing term. Basically, it means we think there could be a tropical storm down the road. We don't have anything right now. We're going to start these potential tropical storm advisories because we might have to put up tropical storm watches or warnings. Doesn't look like that has happened yet. Can never rule it out. I mean, in the last minute here, we could get something right before 5 o'clock, and of course, we'd have the advisory right away. It's possible it could get started later tonight. It's possible it could hold off until tomorrow before the Hurricane Center starts something on this, or maybe even a couple of days. All just things we kind of need to keep in the back of our mind. So the plane came in. They came down from St. Croix and flew down here and kind of did this type of mission right here. And as they were flying, they kind of found that there were several areas, and then they kind of went back up like that. So they found there were several areas where there looked like there was like a little bit of a swirl in the wind or light winds. And you can see kind of a little bit of a swirl there, kind of a south wind there. There's a little bit of a westerly wind there, some southerly wind there, some westerly wind there. So all kinds of different little swirls, basically confined to a bigger area. And that's usually the indications of a disorganized disturbance there, not quite mature enough or far enough along to be classified as a tropical depression. Remember, a tropical depression, we kind of need one trackable feature, and then sometimes that comes and goes as a system is initially coming together. But this is certainly farther along than it was 24 hours ago, may even be farther along than it was 12 hours ago. We didn't have a plane in there at the time. And the one thing to note is that this area of all these winds down here like this, they are all under that bigger area of thunderstorms there. So that is a favorable environment for concentrating a low-level center here, for creating a focal point for development there, and something that we'll be watching very, very closely. It's possible, because of the low-level wind shear that's been blowing across it, especially in the north half, that we have a few more of these little circulations spit out from underneath of it. But we're certainly farther along than we were 24 hours ago. All right, let's talk about the bigger picture here, kind of a big look. There's our little disturbance out there that's moving, it looks like, to the northwest. Computer models keep it out there. We are not going to worry about that, okay? Not to worry about that. All the models keep it out in the Atlantic, and there's a fairly hostile environment kind of setting up here across that part of the Atlantic now as we're getting later in the season. The jet stream is moving a little bit farther to the south. You can see one branch of the jet stream down there with these faster winds right along the Gulf Coast. That is shear, which would be disruptive or destructive to any type of tropical formation. Our feature here, as you can see in the infrared satellite loop, getting rounder there. There is an upper level low, and I'll show you that on the water vapor in just a second, that is also posing some shear. In fact, let's take a look at that. Oh, by the way, that little disturbance in the Western Caribbean there, kind of just a little trough of low pressure moving west, bringing some showers and thunderstorms. All right, so let's talk about the water vapor loop here. What shows up usually fairly easily on the water vapor loop are areas of shear. You can see some shear that's blowing down there. And it's hard to see, but if you make out, there's kind of a gentle motion like that. And that's part of a bigger high pressure area that's basically building across the area there. That potentially could impart a little bit of northeasterly shear here in the eastern Caribbean, or a little bit less favorable environment. You can also see the environment is a little bit on the dry side here. It's not real dry, but it's not overly moist there. But there is some moisture that's moving through the islands right now ahead of it. So as this goes forward here, clearly if it maintains its configuration here, this is going to bring some pretty heavy weather into Trinidad and Tobago, the northern coast of Venezuela there, the Windward Islands, as well as Barbados. That could start as early as tonight. I think that is more likely expected tomorrow and then Thursday. And then this thing is going to kind of drag itself along here and spread the bad weather increasingly farther west. But I wouldn't rule out still some heavy downpours. Trinidad, TNT, as well as the Windwards, and also Barbados and northern parts of Venezuela there. All right, let's get into a little bit more of the tracks here, and then we'll talk about the steering, and then we'll take a look at the longer end tracks. Okay, so that's Tropical Depression 12 advisory. Hang on just a second here. I know that kind of popped up, didn't it? So Tropical Depression 12, and that is the system that is in the eastern Atlantic. So we'll see that advisory come up here on the bottom. I'm not going to display that advisory because the forecast there, according to that advisory, is for dissipation soon. So Tropical Depression 12 formed, and then you've got it there on the bottom of the screen, so you can track it there on the bottom of the screen. So let's go back to our graphics here and talk about the models on the system that we're watching. Here it is, its current position, and the model's in fairly good agreement here now, and that's in the 24-hour time frame, so that would be tomorrow afternoon. Coming through Trinidad and Tobago, as well as the southern Windward Islands there. But remember, it's a little bit lopsided, so it's going to catch Barbados as well as the islands there, the Windward Islands. This is the 48-hour time frame on these models right here, kind of skirting along the coast there. And then this is so today is Tuesday, so that's Wednesday, Thursday time frame. Here is the Friday kind of time frame on all the models here. Here's the Saturday time frame on all the models. And by the time we get to Sunday, we're kind of somewhere in this range out here with the models becoming a little bit more divergent. This is what's the no gaps model up here. That has not done very well at all this season, so we can kind of discount that. It has a very, very far to the right bias. A couple of other models here. This is a COAMPS model. That's also a Navy model. It has done fairly well. The H-Wharf, it is kind of tied to or anchored to the AVNI, and I don't see it in here. It's in here somewhere. So basically, it's in here. Now, that's going to be important to think of where it is when we look at these intensity plots here, because the intensity plots are going to show us what this model, the H-Wharf, which usually is pretty aggressive on a disturbance. Once it gets to become a tropical depression or a tropical storm, it does much better with intensity, but it's usually over-aggressive. So that's something to keep in the back of our mind. The consensus model, this is the blend of the models here. That's kind of an average of all of these models going into it, and that's right there. That's a position right there. And then we have, I think it's the Canadian right down there. So these are, the AVNI. So what may have happened here is that these models use what are called trackers, and the tracker kind of finds where the center is showing up in the model field, the wind field, what we call the vorticity field, the pressure field. And if the tracker loses it because maybe the system hasn't developed enough for the tracker to keep track, the tracker just stops tracking. It's not smart. It's just looking for this isolated area of circulation, and then it tracks it. So we can kind of we can discount that GFS there, and I'll show you that in just a second as well. So that's kind of our blend of models here. Let's take a look at in terms of intensity, and then we will kind of talk about the steering currents going forward, and then we'll look kind of into the 10-day time frame. So here are our thresholds. That's tropical storm. That's the hurricane thresholds there up to Category 2, Category 3. And you can see there's all of the models here have a gradual intensification trend. H-Wharf there, as expected, is kind of on the top end there. Canadian's a little bit lower here. This IVCN, that's kind of like the blend of the intensity models, and it usually does pretty well. So this is once again, this is Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So in this Friday to Saturday time frame. That's when it looks like some intensification could be happening. So certainly something to watch there as well. Not anything to get overly excited about, because a lot of the models, once again, we've talked about this all season long, they have a harder time handling intensity, handling position, handling where the storm is going to go and how strong it's going to be, all of that, until we have a trackable center. And usually we need to have at least a depression or a tropical storm to have a trackable center. So we take all this into account. Remember how we do this. We don't go like, oh my gosh, this is going to happen, or oh, it's not going to happen. We just consider all of these things. We're watching all of these things as we go forward here, and consider what it means to our planning, to our preparation, and anything like that, and certainly something that we are watching here. So let's talk about the steering currents here. This is the latest in terms of the, basically this is about halfway up in the atmosphere, and this is kind of a rough idea of the features that are either blocking what's going on in terms of restricting or kind of limiting where a system could go versus the systems that might encourage or help steer where the system can go. So we've got a couple of things here. We've got a couple of jet stream dips that are kind of working their way across the country here, and those are going to keep moving to the northeast on off as the pattern is what we call fairly progressive here, which progressive means that kind of the dips are moving along. They're not kind of stopped. And we've got a pretty good and well-established blocking high that's sitting out there in the central Atlantic, and we have a ridge from the blocking high that extends into the Caribbean there. And so that is going to tend, I'm not going to say absolutely, but tend to resist northward motion here. That block is going to try to resist northward motion. If you're on the edge of the block, then usually a system will move a little more quickly. So that's why I was saying that it might speed up a little bit once it gets into this time frame here in terms of its westward motion. Not a guarantee, but certainly something to watch. So let's move forward here day by day and kind of see what's going on. You know what? Let me show you this real quickly, because this just came in as well. So this is a special tropical weather outlook. The National Hurricane Center normally issues tropical weather outlooks, and that is at 8 p.m. and 2 a.m. 8 p.m. and 2 a.m. And then if there is anything that has kind of gone outside of what their previous 8 p.m. or 2 a.m. or whatever outlook has forecast, then they will issue a special tropical outlook. This is the second one today. The first one was issued when we had the probability for tropical development on our system coming into the Caribbean. So let's read on this and see what they're saying here. Real quickly here, updated data from the Air Force Hurricane Hunter aircraft indicate that a broad area of low pressure located a couple of hundred miles east of the Windward Islands does not have a closed circulation. So kind of what we were talking about, what I showed you, the center still remains ill-defined, that too. In addition, associated shower and thunderstorm activity is still displaced off to the southeast of the center. Upper level winds are likely to become more conducive for development. Tropical depression could form in the next couple of days if the system stays far enough away from land while moving westward about 15 miles an hour across the Windward Islands, the Southeast Caribbean Sea. Conditions are expected to become more favorable for development, and the probability there is 70%. So that's kind of a good update. That's the specialist Robbie Berg there at the National Hurricane Center, and kind of just cluing us in on what the hurricane hunters found. You know, it's always nice when Hurricane Center kind of just says, hey, here's what's going on. I know everybody's a little bit, on edge because of what we've dealt with in the past couple of weeks here. So here's what we're watching, and just giving you a heads up. All right, so this is the forecast now. Let's go back to our steering currents here, and this is the forecast through tomorrow morning. And you can see the blocking ridge holding on there. Here we go on into Thursday morning, and this is just an approximate position of where that feature might be there, that disturbance. It could be, a little farther north, a little farther south, whatever. But you can see the blocking ridge holds on. Now, there was a little bit of a weakness in the ridge to the north, and had this feature down here been a little bit stronger, then it's possible that it may have wanted to turn and go north into that. That's not going to be the case. Right now, this disturbance is very shallow in the atmosphere, meaning that it's not sensing all of the steering currents that are out there. So as long as that is going on, then we are not seeing any kind of turn to the north there. It's being still driven by the blocking ridge there. So let's go further into time here. Now we're into Friday morning, And the blocking ridge, you can see it's fairly well established here from the center of the blocking high right across the greater Antilles there, right into the southeast Gulf of Mexico. And so this is going to continue to have that impact of trying to steer whatever develops down there in the southern Caribbean to the west. May even push it into northern Venezuela or northeast parts of Colombia there. That's not out of the question, certainly a possibility, but you can see that blocking ridge fairly well established. So let's go on forward here into time, and now we're into the Saturday time frame, and you can see the blocking ridge looks like it's retreating a little bit to the north. It's no longer quite as far into the Caribbean, and that may have the effect of slowing down the disturbance as it gets into the western Caribbean there. After that, going on into the Saturday morning time frame, you can see the blocking ridge still holding on, and according to this model here, which is the GFS, the center there approaching Nicaragua. So that's a long way into the future. Is that going to happen? We don't know. Some of the things we're going to be watching out for here to the north, and when I say the north, I mean across the Yucatan and all of the Gulf and all of Florida, as well as the greater Antilles, Cuba. We are going to watch if this blocking ridge begins to retreat. If that blocking ridge begins to pull out of the area, what that is going to tend to do is slow down this westward progress. And then what we don't want to have happen at all is a system, at least from the perspective of us here in the United States, is a system to sit down here. That is never good. You never want a tropical system sitting because if that happens, and right now the possibility of that happening very, very low. It's not zero, but it's low. But if that happens, then we have to watch out for dips in the jet stream coming along and trying to pull it to the north. Is that going to happen? I have no idea. What does my gut say? My gut says I don't even know if it's going to get into the central part of the Caribbean without kind of being disrupted there. I mean, that's a possibility too. So lots and lots of different possibilities here about what could happen as we go into time. All right, so let's talk about some of the longer range models here, and then I'll wrap this up because kind of get long-winded here. Huh? I think the interest is pretty high though. So, and of course, I let everybody know if you don't want to go through all this meteorology, by all means, you don't have to. So there is what we call the European ensemble, and you can see it's in pretty good agreement there of a feature, a disturbance moving to the west. Not many members here until we get kind of out here into this time frame, get into this yellow and orange areas. That means that we've got a stronger system showing up in the model. Most of these are blues and some light blues and even a few greens, which is basically tropical depression, maybe tropical disturbance, or maybe even tropical storm. And you can see here as we get into now we're into the 6-day time frame, 7-day time frame. That at the end there, that is the 10-day time frame. We do have some members that have made it up into southwest Gulf of Mexico. We have some members that have crossed on into the eastern Pacific. We have some members that literally have stalled out. It looks like here near Panama as well as Costa Rica, possibly, and some members here who are a little bit stronger coming up there towards the Yucatan. So all kinds of possibilities. But at this point, I think it's important enough just to say, these are all possibilities after day 5. These are things that we like to keep in the back of our mind because the one thing we never, ever want to say in hurricane season, and if you were watching with the Ian coverage, is we don't want to be surprised. We always consider all these possibilities, and we plan our plan around those possibilities. And once this is all over and things have calmed down, I'll kind of go into to some of the recapping of what was going on there. So let's talk about the GFS. This is the US model. The other one was a European model. This is the ensemble model. And you can see also lots of members there and lots of spread and kind of just like all kinds of possibilities here. This is the model where it really shows up through 10 days that you get some members that literally just sit down there and wait. Here comes the ensemble mean there, all of the members coming to the west. Some get there and they wait. Some of them kind of cross Nicaragua there, maybe get messed up or involved here in the extreme northeast or eastern Pacific there. Some of the members do kind of slow down and then turn to the northwest and to the north here. We'll see it in just a second here. And so these are all considerations. I mean, things we need to keep in the back of our mind. Once again, we're beyond 5 days. We really kind of focus our preparations around 5 days if we already have our hurricane kit and our hurricane plan. But you can see we've got kind of a large ensemble spread there once we get to the 10-day time frame. And that shows up in kind of the final product here, which shows that there are some members that most of the members kind of go to the west there, which would be a really bad rainfall event for Central America, Honduras, and Nicaragua, especially based on this. Some of the members are weak, go into the Pacific, and some of the members do get a little bit stronger and come up there into the Northwest Caribbean, and even a few members make it into the Southern Gulf. So lots of things to consider here. Just, of course, we're at the stage where we're keeping our eye on it very closely. You folks, Trinidad, Tobago, the Windward Islands, Barbados, as well as the coast of Venezuela will need to keep, obviously, a closer eye on it as we go forward here. But remember, we do things here very step by step. No panicking, no getting, no hype, no getting overly excited. It's all about slow, deliberate. Hurricane events are a marathon. Don't do too much too early, but don't fall behind is kind of the way we go here. So once again, if you like the video, please click the like button. Please click subscribe, and please click the notification button as well. And that will do it for today. I will see you tomorrow at 4:30, unless depression advisories are started on this, and then we'll we'll do it probably around 10:45 tomorrow morning, but I'll put a notification on Twitter and let everybody know. And once again, thanks for watching today's Tropical Tracks.